I thought she walked a fine line on the Middle East. So she showed empathy to both Israelis and Palestinians. And on that latter part, it seemed to me that she was maybe trying to create a tiny bit of daylight between herself and Biden. But ultimately, it was rhetoric. We don't know what exactly she's going to
Yeah.
do. Is that right?
Yeah. I think that's right. I mean, I think this is language we've heard from her before. I mean, to the extent that she created daylight with Biden, I think she created it a bit months ago. Particularly with the speech she gave in Selma, where she was much more critical of Israeli policy and lifting up the Palestinian humanitarian crisis in Gaza, much more than Biden had done. So I understand the line she was trying to walk. I was disappointed in what I heard last night. We heard very effusive and detailed support for Israel in the wake of October 7, and then we saw some pretty vague support for Palestinians' rights to self-determination. Um, and I know there was a lot of work that was, done, and she had requests from the uncommitted movement and others. There were hopes that we might see something a bit more specific or a bit more forward-leaning, and I don't think we got it last night. And I think this really does get to the question. Again, we're still in a campaign. We didn't expect to see great detail last night, but this is really a question and I think others have is she ready to move forward and represent the Democratic Party of today, not only in domestic but also in foreign policy? And I think, as we all know, the issue of Gaza has been an issue that is really divisive in the party. And it's not only, but it is to some extent between older and younger voters. And again, not only. I think there are some older Democrats who share these views of the uncommitted movement. But I think this is something many of us are going to be hoping to hear more from her on in the future.
Yeah, I heard her quite differently. And I would start by noting her line was the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, freedom, security, and self-determination. And that was one of the biggest applause lines of her entire speech. So one thing I noted right away was there was no question where the people in the hall were, not just the people outside, but the people in the hall. But for the rest, and I agree with Matt that she was very specific on making sure that supporting Israel's right to defend itself and making sure it had the capacity to defend itself. But I heard her saying, we're not going to split the party right now. I am not going to give Donald Trump an opening here. And remember before, when the pro-Palestinian demonstrators interrupted her speech, she said, thank you. And finally, she said, if you want Donald Trump to win, just say so. Otherwise, I am speaking. And that's what I thought I heard last night was a kind of, I hear the entire package for Palestine and I see the devastation and I see the horrors and we are doing everything we can to stop this war. And after this war, here's what the Palestinian people need. But I am not going to open even a crack that will let the Republicans paint me as soft on Israel.